The Clean Power Hour is brought to you by CPS America, the maker of North America's #1 three-phase string inverter, with over 6 gigawatts shipped in the U.S. The CPS America product lineup includes three-phase string inverters ranging from 25 to 275 kW. Their flagship inverter, the CPS 250-275, is designed to work with solar plants ranging from 2 megawatts to 2 gigawatts. The 250-275 pairs well with CPS America's exceptional data communication, controls, and energy storage solutions. Go to chintpowersystems.com to find out more.
Some of these inverter and tracking manufacturers require certification to make sure you're maintaining the warranty on this very expensive equipment. So you want to make sure you have somebody qualified to go out and service it.
Are you speeding the energy transition? Here at the Clean Power Hour, our hosts Tim Montague and John Weaver bring you the best in solar, batteries, and clean technologies every week. Want to go deeper into decarbonization? We do too. We're here to help you understand and command the commercial, residential, and utility solar, wind, and storage industries. So let's get to it. Together we can speed the energy transition.
Today on the Clean Power Hour, commercial, industrial, solar operations and maintenance. My guest today is Josh Richardson. He is the Director of O&M for Continental Energy Solutions in Northern Illinois. Welcome to the show, Josh.
Hey, thanks, Tim, for having me.
I don't think that O&M is the sexiest topic on earth, but it is very important, right? If your PV plant is not generating kWh, it's not generating savings for you or revenue if it's a community solar project. And so keeping the array running, keeping it in tip-top shape is actually extremely important to everyone involved, whether you're a behind-the-meter customer or an asset owner. So give our listeners a little background on yourself. How did you get interested in O&M, and what is it that your group does there at Continental?
I'll start off by saying my background, I started out with a very, very small firm sitting at a kitchen table. In Illinois, it's still relatively new, and we were doing residential and naturally progressed into commercial. And after several years of helping to organize the company and running larger projects, I came over to Continental Energy as a commercial project manager doing solar installations on big box stores and portfolios, a lot of cookie cutter projects that were just kind of took the lion's share of the original sort of build out, I think, in Illinois, the larger systems. We did some self-development, but a lot of it was developers that were trying to get in on the early market here. And that naturally progressed as the incentives expanded into community solar projects. And as we started building into those, the original systems that we had built started needing their regular maintenance, getting inspections and repairs. And so we were wearing many hats at the time, and that grew so rapidly that it just necessitated somebody to kind of steer the helm of the operations and maintenance. And so I kind of took advantage of that opportunity with my background and experience of being in the field, being in the office, seeing all the sides, to kind of run with it and build it up. So I'll say that, the industry here in Illinois, the solar industry it's like an all solar emerging industries across the states as they start. It's a quick and rapid growth and expansion. And I'll say that with Continental Energy, they've provided the support and resources that I haven't seen anywhere else to take care of these larger projects, install them, and keep them maintained and repaired, having access to large engineering groups, a fleet of drones, prefab, and our warehouse support. So from the get-go all the way to today, it's the support that I've been provided to help, in turn, keep all of the solar assets that we oversee up and running has been phenomenal.
There's sometimes there's a conflict in the solar world, and that is between quality on the one hand and price on the other. And there is a spectrum of types of equipment that you can install in the solar industry. It's a fairly mature industry. It's been around for 70 years, and it's good, bad, ugly, right? And of course, if we're choosing as solar developers and installers the equipment, we're going to choose quality equipment. And that's one of the things that I very much appreciate about Continental is they don't try to go cheap. They don't try to cut corners. They use quality equipment. They use tier one, and they use tried and true methodologies. But you, of course, running O&M in now what is, a top 10 solar market in the U.S., see a complete spectrum of this good, bad, ugly, right? So there's the equipment, and then there's the labor and the installation of the equipment. And things can go wrong on both sides of that equation. And I understand why asset owners or the people financing a project may want to cut corners on the front end to make the project theoretically more lucrative down the line, and especially if they're just flipping it, right? Build and flip is a model in the solar industry. But somebody's inheriting that equipment and has to maintain it and benefit from it. And so they're inheriting a headache. But tell us a little bit about what you have seen, what you and your crews have seen as far as community solar and large C&I in Northern Illinois.
Yeah, you kind of hit it right on the head that, there's many layers. I'll say it kind of starts with investors, developers, and then you get into the construction. But even within the construction side, you can have GCs that are overseeing the installation crews that are a different company. So you can have many hands in the bucket. And ultimately, the investors are just looking to have a quality installation that's going to provide that ROI that they've mapped out on their spreadsheets to make sure that it's going to bring the returns that they calculated out. So I'll say, that disconnect of so many layers from, especially for groups outside of Illinois that don't have direct contact or visibility to the sites, is one of the biggest issues and disparities that we're seeing, is that, they're relying on, like you're saying, they've mapped out pricing and budgets, and they have to find these multiple layers to all fit within that budget. And in the end, you can potentially see, we've seen day laborers installing, electrical components, and our group is, I would say, puts a very concerned and critical eye. Number one, because somebody's paying us to perform this service. But number two, we want to make sure that the solar that's being installed is up to the highest standard, is reliable, and is going to provide that return. But also just bring a sense of safety to whether it's on a rooftop or even if it's out, in rural farmland, the surrounding people, the neighbors that are also tied to that same grid have an expectation of reliability and safety themselves that they take for granted, not knowing that things could potentially go wrong if just left, ignored. So what we see here in Illinois with this growth is, primarily that disconnect that can be, sort of stopgapped by having progress inspections during installation, QA, QC at the end. We provide commissioning, though that's not like a primary function. It's just one of our expertises, because we're involved. We're touching this equipment all the time. We know how to interface with it and how to program it correctly, from the communication side to the utility interconnection requirements, everything in between. We do medium voltage. So seeing that full spectrum from the smallest weather sensor to large utility transformers allows us to know what to look for, what issues are going on, and make sure that we can stop things as early as possible to get them corrected. Because the other thing that we've seen a lot of is installation issues by poor installation practices can lead to incredibly high costs down the road if they're not stopped early on. And that's where progress inspections are very useful. Even if you get during the installation process 50% inspection at the minimum, get a third-party inspection at the end of it, because companies punch listing their own installations are going to overlook certain things, or things become a gray area, not with code explicitly, but installation practices, what are viewed as best practices in the industry. So, we keep an eye out for that. And as the owner's rep or as a third party coming in, we don't hold punches. There's nobody to look out for but the client themselves. So I can't stress enough those early inspections and the cost savings they provide down the line if even the smallest problem is discovered.
I'm glad you mentioned labor. Continental is an IBEW contractor, and of course the IBEW has a rigorous training program. These electricians are going through 3 to 5 years of apprenticeship before they become journeyman electricians, and so you just that is a level of quality that you're not going to see in non-union labor organizations. Meanwhile, now we do have significant requirements with the IRA legislation and CEJA in Illinois that certainly larger facilities have to use prevailing wage labor, and so that is upping everybody's game because it's gonna force a more qualified labor force on the market, which is going to be good for everyone. You also mentioned safety. We can never forget this, that, this is electrical equipment. Things do go wrong. It can cause problems for the built environment and cause, safety concerns. So we just want to keep that front and center. Human safety is the foremost. But then ROI, right? We want to have good ROI for whoever is the asset owner or benefactor from a behind the meter solar project. Let's talk though a little bit about that. I remember, some of the horror stories from projects that Continental did not build, but was called in to inspect and do O&M on. And, it was a little shocking that some of these practices were going on in a relatively, together place like Illinois. I mean, this isn't the third world. But what is it that you've seen, and are things improving as the market matures here in Illinois?
As you noted, with the new legislation and the requirement for prevailing wage, I think it's going to have to improve the quality of installation. Nobody is going to tolerate, paying those wages to somebody who has no experience. So it's a qualifier, and I think it will help what we're seeing on the back end on the repairing side. I mean, a lot of our repairs are due to poor installation. We also see, just equipment failures. But I'll even say, we've looked at installations that on the surface seem fine, but it gets down really into the specs of every tiny piece of hardware. We have I don't want to get lost in the weeds too much, but we'll see transformer terminations that are rated for copper wire, but they use aluminum wire, and it starts overheating, and that was just oversight by either an engineer or the crew lead, and those minor oversights can be caught at. And this was during a new asset that we brought into our group we just did a QA/QC on. It was a kind of post installation inspection after the site had been running for a while, and we discovered some major issues like that seem to be more oversights. But our critical eye to those details and our connections to vendors to give us specs on lugs. We can take a picture, send it to our vendor. They'll tell us the specs and ratings for it, and we can make determinations right away. But outside of that, I'll say one of the issues I believe in the solar industry is it across the world, it's mature, but there's always new technologies coming out, especially with tracking systems in particular, new inverter requirements that haven't been tried and true, as you said, that Continental is kind of known for. Like, we do not like trying out new systems. We do not like, we want to make sure that what we're installing is reliable and will need minimal maintenance ongoing. We see a lot of tracker installations with new designs and systems that are having pretty big issues in cold temperatures and just with their tracking technology. So we're there to support those clients through it all, and we learn along with them with these new systems how to correct them, how to maintain them, and work with the manufacturers and provide feedback. They're asking us in our techs, how we're fixing things and what we're doing, what we're seeing on their systems, because we're the hands and the eyes in the field. So we're on that front line, so to speak, of kind of the potential failures and sort of the happenstance causes. There's preventative equipment we see lightning strikes. We see it all out there. So, but I do to your point really quick, I'll wrap up, is that I think that Illinois being a later to the solar industry has helped them in some regard, because there are a lot of improvements in the equipment. The production of this equipment is way more efficient, and you can get a lot more out of every drop of sun that's pouring on it. So in that regard, I do see some major improvements, and this turn in the industry to provide training and qualifications to the installers, I think is a huge boon to Illinois.
The Clean Power Hour is brought to you by CPS America, the maker of North America's #1 three-phase string inverter, with over 6 gigawatts shipped in the U.S. The CPS America product lineup includes three-phase string inverters ranging from 25 to 275 kW. Their flagship inverter, the CPS 250-275, is designed to work with solar plants ranging from 2 megawatts to 2 gigawatts. The 250-275 pairs well with CPS America's exceptional data communication, controls, and energy storage solutions. Go to chintpowersystems.com to find out more. I'm curious, one of the services you offer is performance evaluation and performance monitoring. Give our listeners some general comments about that. How are systems performing in comparison to how you might expect them to based on the design?
Yeah, I think, it really comes down to the equipment and the quality of installation more than anything else. The industry as a whole, I think the modeling is pretty spot on. Most of the standards are produced by academics and federal government agencies. So there's a lot of research behind it. I will say more off-the-shelf modeling through the various software applications is a little hit and miss, because maybe it doesn't take into effect the impact of snow on modules, or the amount. They try to model based upon weather, but there's a few small gaps that I think will be ironed out as more data presents itself in these areas that are providing these anomalies in their data sets. So everything's always improving. I do believe that, if done correctly, the models are very accurate, as long as you have that uptime. And a little, note for the O&M, that uptime is kept up by operations and maintenance, by repairing failures that happen on equipment, or just, the software these days is at the point where you can almost do predictive analysis and pay attention to trends in the data that you're receiving from individual inverters, from individual strings on an inverter. You can start to see things as they're failing and get out there in advance to save, potentially save money on the truck rolls, on turning wrenches, on providing replacement equipment. So I do think the industry as a whole has improved just in the time, that I've been in solar. The past 7-8 years has come a really long way.
You mentioned trackers and some of the challenges trackers face here in cold climates. I love technology, but it's a double edge, right? We saw trackers sweep the field really, starting in 2017. All the designs changed from fixed to tracker, and trackers give you more production per kW. That's why they're used, right? You can see a 10 to 15% bump in the energy produced for the same amount of solar panels, and that's a good thing. And it's very cool when it works, right? But if the tracker stops tracking, then the array is going to produce significantly less than it would with a standard fixed tilt array. And so you want to make sure that the tracker is tracking. Is there more to say about trackers or other technologies that are, it's a growing field of manufacturers. We have some very tried and true companies in that industry, but also many upstarts.
Agree. And even those tried and true are coming out with new models, new technologies that they're implementing that, you don't want to be the guinea pig in that market is my takeaway. We have some newer technologies that we maintain that are, we've had some very cold days this winter and seen a lot of issues on them. And there are trackers that just keep on tracking, they don't hesitate. I don't know. I have a lot of respect for the additional production that's coming out of them. It makes a lot of sense. And as long as it's a simple mechanism and you're not trying to reinvent anything, then I think it's reliable. In the industry, a lot of the impetus is placed on obviously the cost of equipment and how to find more savings. And I think that's a slippery slope, especially with new technologies. Without a lot of data and examples to back it up, I would be somewhat hesitant because we are repairing a lot of equipment out there.
When it comes to small utility, community solar, we have a couple hundred of these projects now and a couple hundred more in the works. This brings up the issue, though, of vegetation. How are you covering the ground? Are you using pollinator friendly? Are you pursuing some more advanced agrivoltaic approach? But what are you seeing when it comes to plantings of these arrays and vegetation management?
I'll comment that I think agrivoltaics is a great idea, but it has a lot more planning that I think is harder to financially model unless you have a farmer that's already in that industry to partner with. Like, I'll say for the most part, it's turf and mow. We maintain several sites that do have pollinator friendly, and they take a larger upfront commitment to, spot treat nuisance species. But all in all, I haven't seen the long-term effect of it, but the intent is that you won't have to mow, that the savings bear themselves out in later years. It's still a little early in our industry to see that those have established, solidly, but I think it's a great idea. A lot of the larger portfolio partners we work with, they budget for mowing. And that also comes into, play with the trackers that you're talking about. You then have to coordinate them. If you have a cab system, which is a hanging, it's above ground DC wire run. If you're hanging your wires up, you're effectively limiting the access to mowers. These are things that you wouldn't necessarily think about, but it becomes more complicated and can increase the cost of mowing. The trackers themselves, as they're rotating, the vegetation management company has to have experience with stalling the trackers, putting them into a set anticipated pitch so that as they're mowing, they don't have to get out of the way of these huge arrays that are shifting position as the day progresses. These sites are, up to 20 acres for the community solar. It takes some time to mow them, and throughout the day, those trackers are positioned in different ways that they can make it hard to access. So there's, in the minutia of it, it can get a little difficult. So you want to make sure that you have somebody you're not hiring the kid next door to mow your 20-acre solar field, that you're using somebody who's qualified and has experience on it, I think is the takeaway on that.
Well, what else would you like to say to developers and asset owners who might be looking for an O&M service provider? What do you have to say to them about how they're approaching their work and, project longevity?
Yeah, I'd say a lot of the larger developers that are in community solar, they already know, they've been doing this for a while in different areas. I would say the biggest change is the geography and the weather of Illinois is different and provides its own, nuances. But then I'd also say, having qualified people that have exposure to the specific equipment that you're working on. Some of these inverter and tracking manufacturers require certification to make sure you're maintaining the warranty on this very expensive equipment. So you want to make sure you have somebody qualified to go out and service it. We've gone out to a number of sites following on the boots of somebody else who had tried to repair, had either caused damage or just got in over their heads. And And I think that's the nature, and like I said, in emerging solar markets, is you have a lot of people that have ramped up from small residential straight into commercial, industrial, and community solar without the experience and exposure. And they're not wreaking havoc, but there's long-term issues that are being developed. We've seen, being in the O&M group, I could spend days talking about the amazing things we've seen and had to repair. It's shocking, and no pun intended, but it's also it's concerning. I think that's the biggest takeaway is when you're out of state developing large solar, you don't know who's doing the installation, and the best mitigation you can do is get somebody qualified to inspect for you that has no skin in the game on the company that's performing the installation. Having anybody else come in and put a critical eye and start punch listing items and start calling out for code violations, but all the way to best practice. A lot of these groups aren't reading the fine detail on the engineering prints. The recipe books that are handed to them explicitly state a lot of things about wire management and types of connectors and everything else that's glossed over, ignored, and there's no verification of it to the investors. They just assume that the power's on, they see production, and it's good to go. And it could be, wildly the opposite direction. So
cool. Well, I don't really have any other questions for you. Is there anything else you'd like our listeners to know about what you're up to at Continental Energy Solutions?
Yeah, I'd say one of the other kind of cool emerging technologies is bringing drones into the mix. Most people in the solar industry are well aware of this, but doing thermal drone inspections has nearly replaced some of the labor time and testing that we do as far as IV curve tracing. IV curve tracing has a very relevant place in our O&M world and in commissioning. But at the same time, a lot of what you're trying to identify can be picked up by drones, and our fleet and our data processing has shown a lot of, in a short amount of time, can reveal a lot of very poignant issues that you can then go to. You can imagine that array behind you or the one behind me. When you have thousands of solar panels, how do you identify which one of those a diode has failed on a panel? An IV curve trace will show some diminished production, but it's not going to show that a module is failing or that you have connection issues or anything else. So I'd say that the drone aspect has changed the industry very quickly, and everybody's adapted to it. It has just integrated it seamlessly, and I think it's just part of our new tool belt. That's pretty cool. Yeah,
I love it, and I love the automation aspects, right, of being able to get a quick read on what's working and what's not. So, all right, well, Josh, how can our listeners find you?
Let's see if I can point the right way. We have some contact information right here, our URL. There's our service email address. We started a new for O&M only. We call it Thermal Thursdays. We're putting kind of crazy thermal images and what we're seeing and what you don't see. Everything electrically looks like it's operating silently and normally until you look at the heat signature, and it can be very revealing. So we have on Instagram a Thermal Thursday hashtag that we throw out there, and we post on Instagram on the construction side as well as the O&M side a lot of the things we see. I hesitate on the O&M. We only see kind of scary things, sort of the ugly side, as you said at the beginning of it. And so that's why we're called into the field, is to address the ugly side. So I'm slow to post a lot of that, because for the most part, solar is, it's reliable, it's safe, it's producing a lot of revenue for its investors. It's a great business model, and Illinois has come a long way on reaching their carbon offset goals. So I think it's all headed in the right direction.
Absolutely. Well, check out Continental Energy Solutions at cesnrg.com, and you just click on the O&M tab to find Josh's group there. I'm Tim Montague. You can find all of our content here at the Clean Power Hour at cleanpowerhour.com. Please give us a rating and a review on Apple and Spotify, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. I want to thank Josh Richardson, the Director of O&M at CES, for coming on the show. Thank you so much, Josh.
Thanks, Tim.
Let's grow solar. The Clean Power Hour is brought to you by CPS America, the maker of North America's #1 three-phase string inverter, with over 6 gigawatts shipped in the U.S. The CPS America product lineup includes three-phase string inverters ranging from 25 to 275 kW. Their flagship inverter, the CPS 250-275, is designed to work with solar plants ranging from 2 megawatts to 2 gigawatts. The 250-275 pairs well with CPS America's exceptional data communication, controls, and energy storage solutions. Go to chintpowersystems.com to find out more.